"Sign here, Mom, it's just paperwork for the refinancing." My daughter-in-law's voice was honey-sweet as she slid the document across my kitchen table, but something in her eyes made my stomach turn. I glanced down at the paper and my blood ran cold. This wasn't refinancing paperwork. This was a deed transfer. She was trying to steal my home, the house I'd lived in for 43 years. My hand trembled as I reached for the pen. She didn't know it yet, but I was about to sign the wrong document, and that decision would save everything. My name is Eleanor Mitchell, and I'm 72 years old. I never thought I'd be sitting here, telling you this story. But if my experience can help even one person avoid the nightmare I went through, then it's worth sharing every painful detail. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your state or country in the comments below. It means the world to me to know I'm not alone in this, and that maybe my story can reach someone who needs to hear it. Now let me take you back to where this all started, because the truth is, the warning signs were there all along. I just didn't want to see them. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, in a beautiful craftsman-style home that my late husband Thomas and I bought in 1982. We raised our son, David, in this house. Every corner holds a memory. His first steps in the living room, birthday parties in the backyard, Thomas teaching him to ride a bike in the driveway. After Thomas passed away from a heart attack 6 years ago, this house became even more precious to me. It wasn't just wood and walls. It was my entire history, my independence, and my security. David married Jessica 4 years ago. I'll be honest, I had reservations from the start. Not because she wasn't accomplished or attractive. Jessica was both. She worked in real estate development, always dressed impeccably, and knew exactly what to say in any situation. That was part of the problem. Everything felt rehearsed, calculated. When she looked at you, it was like she was assessing your value. But David was in love, absolutely smitten. And I'd lost Thomas just 2 years before their wedding. I was still grieving, still finding my footing as a widow. I didn't want to lose my son, too, by being the difficult mother-in-law. So I smiled, I welcomed her into our family, and I ignored that small voice in my gut that whispered warnings. The first year of their marriage was relatively peaceful. They lived in a condo downtown, and we'd have Sunday dinners together. Jessica would compliment my cooking, ask about my week, bring expensive wine. It all seemed perfect. Too perfect, I'd later realize. Things shifted after Thomas's estate was fully settled. I inherited everything. The house, his pension, his life insurance, our savings. It was a comfortable amount, enough to live well for the rest of my life without financial worry. Suddenly, Jessica's interest in my life intensified. She started asking questions about my plans for the house. Did I really need all that space? Had I considered downsizing? Wouldn't a retirement community be easier, more social? I brushed it off at first. Maybe she was genuinely concerned about me rattling around in a big house alone. But the questions kept coming, growing more pointed with each visit. About 18 months ago, Jessica's approach changed. She stopped suggesting I sell and instead started positioning herself as my helper, my advocate. She'd drop by unannounced with pastries and coffee, always with some new concern about the house. The roof needed attention, didn't it? The foundation might have issues. The electrical system was probably outdated. Had I thought about what would happen if I fell and couldn't call for help? She was planting seeds of doubt, making me question my ability to maintain my own home. I can see that now. At the time, I just felt increasingly anxious and overwhelmed. "Mom, I've been thinking," she said one afternoon, settling into my favorite armchair like she owned the place. "With my background in real estate, I could really help you manage this property. Handle the maintenance issues, deal with contractors, make sure you're not being taken advantage of. These older homes require so much expertise." I thanked her, but said I was managing fine. I'd been handling household matters for 5 decades. I wasn't helpless. Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course you're not helpless. I'm just saying you don't have to do it alone. Family helps family." Then came the incidents. Small things at first. My mailbox was vandalized. Someone left my garden hose running, flooding the basement. A contractor showed up claiming I'd called him about emergency foundation work I hadn't. Each time, Jessica was right there, expressing concern, offering to take over some of the burden of homeownership. I'm not a paranoid woman, but I started to wonder, were these coincidences? Or was someone trying to make me feel unsafe in my own home? My friend Barbara, who I've known since David was in elementary school, noticed the change in me. "Eleanor, you seem on edge lately," she said during our weekly lunch. "Is everything okay?" I confided my concerns. Not about Jessica specifically, but about feeling overwhelmed and questioning whether I should consider selling. Barbara, bless her heart, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Eleanor Mitchell, you love that house. You've never once mentioned leaving it until recently. Who's been putting these ideas in your head?" That question haunted me, because the answer was obvious. Jessica. 3 months ago, things escalated dramatically. Jessica called me on a Tuesday morning, her voice urgent. "Mom, we need to talk about something important. Can David and I come over tonight?" They arrived at 7, Jessica carrying a leather portfolio that immediately made me nervous. David looked uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. That should have been my biggest red flag. "Mom," Jessica began, her tone taking on that patronizing quality that sets my teeth on edge. "We've been doing some research, and we're really concerned about your financial security. If something were to happen to you, the estate taxes on this house would be astronomical. David would lose a huge portion of his inheritance just to taxes. It would be devastating." She pulled out printouts, charts, articles about estate planning. It all looked very official, very frightening. I'm educated. I was a high school English teacher for 35 years. But I'm not a financial expert, and she knew that. "There's a solution," she continued, sliding papers across the coffee table. "If you transfer the house into David's name now, it would avoid all those taxes. You'd still live here, of course. Nothing would change for you. It's just a legal protection, a way to secure David's future." David finally spoke up. "Mom, Jessica's been studying this. She's really found a way to help us all." "Help you all?" I repeated slowly. "Or help Jessica?" The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Jessica's smile remained fixed, but her eyes went cold. "Mom, I'm hurt that you'd think this is anything other than looking out for family. I'm trying to protect what Thomas worked so hard for." "Don't you dare use Thomas's name," I thought, but I just said I needed time to think about it, to consult with my own attorney. "Of course," Jessica said smoothly. "Though I should mention, the longer you wait, the more complicated it becomes. These estate tax laws could change any time, but take your time. We just want what's best for you." They left, and I sat in the silence of my home, feeling sick. Something was very wrong. I called my attorney, Martin Holloway, first thing the next morning. Martin had handled Thomas's estate and had been our family lawyer for 20 years. "Eleanor, do not sign anything," he said firmly after I explained the situation. "Estate taxes aren't the issue they're making them out to be, especially with current exemption limits. This sounds like a transfer of ownership, period. If you sign that house over, you'd have no legal claim to it. They could sell it, evict you, anything. Don't do it." His words confirmed my worst fears. This wasn't about protecting me or David. This was about Jessica getting control of my most valuable asset. For the next 2 weeks, Jessica called daily. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Casual chat that would inevitably circle back to protecting the house and thinking about David's future. The pressure was relentless. Then she changed tactics. She started coming by when David was at work, always with some excuse. She needed to borrow a serving dish. She wanted my recipe for pot roast. Each visit included a comment about the house. "These hardwood floors are gorgeous. Must be worth a fortune. The lot size alone is probably $300,000. She was assessing, calculating, claiming. I confided everything to Barbara, who suggested I might be overreacting. "Maybe she's just trying to help in her own way," Barbara offered gently. "You know how young people are with money. always worried about planning ahead. But Martin disagreed. Trust your instincts, Eleanor. I've seen cases like this. Family members who see an aging parent as an opportunity rather than a person to protect. Document everything. Don't sign anything without me reviewing it first, and consider what your boundaries need to be with Jessica. I started keeping notes. Dates, times, conversations. I felt ridiculous, like I was spying on my own family. But the knot in my stomach told me I needed evidence of what was happening. 3 weeks ago, Jessica showed up unannounced on a Thursday afternoon. She was carrying another portfolio, and her expression was different, more confident, almost triumphant. "Great news, Mom," she announced, letting herself in without waiting for an invitation. "I found an even better solution. Instead of a full transfer, we can do a refinancing that will lower your monthly expenses dramatically. It's complicated paperwork, but I've already filled most of it out. You just need to sign in a few places." My heart started racing. This was it. This was the real push. "I thought we were talking about a transfer," I said carefully. "This is better. It keeps everything in your name technically, but gives David and me the ability to help manage things. The bank needs authorization to work with us on your behalf. It's standard stuff for RIA fees, especially for homes this valuable." She was smooth. I'll give her that. The words flowed like honey, designed to confuse and reassure simultaneously. "Why don't you leave the papers here, and I'll look them over with Martin," I suggested. Her mask slipped for just a second. Irritation flashed across her face before she recovered. "Mom, Martin's great for general stuff, but this is specialized mortgage work. The broker who prepared these is expecting them back by tomorrow. The rates are locked in, but only until then. After that, we'd have to start over, and you'd lose thousands in savings." The pressure, the urgency, the manipulation, it was textbook, and I was done playing along. "Okay," I said quietly. "Let me get my reading glasses." I walked to my bedroom, my mind racing. This was the moment. She was going to pressure me to sign something that would steal my home. I needed proof, and I needed a strategy. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and texted Martin, "SOS, Jessica here with papers. Says refinancing, but I don't trust it. What do I do?" His response came immediately. "Do not sign. Stall her. I can be there in 30 minutes. But I knew Jessica wouldn't wait 30 minutes. She'd sense something was wrong and leave with the papers. I needed them. I needed evidence of what she was trying to do. Then I remembered something. Last year, David had left some work papers at my house, blank documents from his accounting firm that I'd tucked in my office desk drawer, meaning to return them. Same size, same professional look, different content entirely. I grabbed several sheets of those blank forms and my glasses and returned to the living room. "Sorry, took me a minute to find these," I said, waving the glasses. Jessica had spread her papers across my dining room table, arranged just so. "Here, here, and here," she pointed, indicating signature lines highlighted in yellow, and initial here and here. I sat down, pulling the papers closer, making a show of reading carefully. "This is a lot to process," I murmured. "The language is so technical." "That's why you have me," Jessica said brightly. "I've been through a dozen of these. Trust me, it's all standard." Trust me. Those words from her mouth made my skin crawl. I pretended to read for several long minutes, occasionally asking questions that she'd answer with practiced vagueness. Then, in what I hoped looked like an absent-minded movement, I knocked my water glass over. Not much water, I'd been careful about that, but enough to create chaos. "Oh no!" I cried out, jumping up. Jessica leaped back, protecting her expensive suit. In the confusion, as we both grabbed napkins and I made a fuss about soaking up the water, I accomplished what I needed to. The papers got shuffled. In the commotion, I managed to slide her documents aside and position the blank accounting forms in their place. "I'm so sorry," I kept saying. "How clumsy of me." It's fine," Jessica said, though her jaw was tight. She was checking her watch now, clearly worried about the wet papers. "We should probably sign these while they dry before they get too damaged." Yes, yes, of course. I picked up the pen, hands still trembling. Not from nerves now, but from the adrenaline of what I was doing. I signed those blank papers. I initialed them. I dated them. All the while, Jessica watched like a hawk, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. She thought she'd won. Perfect, she said, gathering the papers, the accounting forms, before the ink was even dry. I'll get these filed right away. And Mom, you've made a really smart decision today. David will be so relieved. After she left, I stood in my dining room, staring at the real documents she'd tried to get me to sign. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I picked up the first page and read the header. Warranty deed, it said in bold letters. Not refinancing papers. A deed. A transfer of property ownership from Eleanor Mitchell to Jessica Mitchell and David Mitchell. She had looked me in the eyes and lied. She had tried to trick me into signing away my home. I had to sit down. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't breathe. This woman, who I'd welcomed into my family, who called me Mom, had just attempted fraud. Against me. Against her own family. If you're feeling that same shock, that same sick feeling in your stomach right now, please hit that subscribe button. Because this story is about to get so much more intense, and you won't believe how this plays out. Trust me, justice is coming, but the road to get there will leave you on the edge of your seat. I called Martin immediately. He arrived within 20 minutes, and I showed him everything. The real deed transfer papers, my notes documenting Jessica's visits and conversations, the blank forms I'd signed instead. Martin's face grew increasingly grim as he reviewed the documents. Eleanor, this is attempted fraud, clear-cut. She tried to deceive you into transferring property under false pretenses. The fact that you didn't actually sign the real documents is good for you, but we need to act fast. What do you mean? I asked, though I feared I knew the answer. If she believes you signed, she'll likely try to file these documents. When she discovers they're blank or wrong, she'll realize what happened. We need to be prepared for her next move. We spent the next hour strategizing. Martin made copies of everything, had me write a detailed statement while the memory was fresh, and advised me to cut off contact with Jessica until further notice. Don't answer her calls. Don't let her in your house. If David wants to visit, it has to be alone. We need to see what she does next before we show our hand. That night, I called David. Jessica answered his phone. Hi, Mom. Did you want to talk to David about the paperwork? I need to speak with my son, I said firmly. Alone. There was a pause. Is everything okay? Please put David on the phone. When David finally answered, he sounded confused. Mom, what's wrong? I need you to come by tomorrow, alone. It's important. Jessica mentioned you seemed upset after. Alone, David, please. He agreed, though I could hear Jessica in the background, asking questions he deflected. The next day, David arrived looking worried. I had decided to be direct. Your wife tried to trick me into signing over my house to her. His face went pale. What? No, Mom, it was just refinancing papers. It was a deed transfer, David. A warranty deed putting my home in both your names, and she told me it was refinancing paperwork. I showed him the documents. I watched my son's face as he read them, watched the realization dawn, watched the denial fight with the evidence in his hands. There has to be an explanation, he said weakly. Maybe she made a mistake. Maybe the mortgage broker gave her the wrong papers. Read it, David. It's filled out. My name, your names, the property description. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. He sat heavily in the chair, the papers falling to his lap. I don't understand. Why would she do this? Money, I said simply. Control. Whatever her reasons, she lied to me and attempted to commit fraud. What did you sign? He asked suddenly, looking up. Nothing that matters. I didn't sign her papers. Understanding flooded his face, followed by something that looked like relief, then horror. What's going to happen? That depends on what Jessica does next. We didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, a courier arrived with a certified letter. I signed for it with Martin on speakerphone, my hands shaking as I opened the envelope. Notice to quit premises, the document read. Jessica Mitchell and David Mitchell, as owners of the property located at 247 Maple Grove Road, Asheville, North Carolina, hereby notify Eleanor Mitchell that she is required to vacate the premises within 30 days. She was trying to evict me from my own home. I couldn't breathe. The audacity, the sheer cruelty of it. She truly believed she owned my house. That meant she'd filed the fraudulent deed somehow. But how? Martin's voice cut through my panic. Eleanor, listen to me. This is actually good news. She's made her move. Now we have her. Good news? She's trying to throw me out. A notice to quit with no legal standing. She's overplayed her hand. She must have filed the false deed, which means we have her on record committing fraud. We're going to the courthouse today. At the Register of Deeds office, we discovered exactly what had happened. Jessica had indeed filed a deed transfer, but not the one I'd supposedly signed. She'd forged my signature on a completely different document, one that didn't even match the forms she'd brought to my house. She'd gotten sloppy, arrogant, too confident in her own scheme. Martin photographed everything, requested certified copies, and immediately filed a complaint with the county prosecutor's office for deed fraud. We also filed an emergency motion in court to void the fraudulent deed and to restrain Jessica from taking any further action regarding my property. That night, David called. He was crying. Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what she was doing. She told me you'd agreed to put the house in our names for estate planning. She said it was your idea. I never saw the papers. His voice broke. I'm so sorry. Part of me wanted to comfort him. He was my child and he sounded devastated. But another part of me was angry. You never questioned why she was handling it all? Why she wouldn't let me work with my own attorney? You didn't wonder why I'd suddenly decide to give up my home? She said you were struggling, that you'd asked for help, but were embarrassed to admit it to me directly. She made it sound like she was protecting your dignity. He let out a bitter laugh. I was so stupid, so blind. Where is she now? She's acting like everything is fine. She's planning what furniture we'll keep, what we'll sell. She's talking about renovating, like you're already gone. His voice dropped to a whisper. What kind of person have I married? I didn't have an answer for him. 2 days later, Jessica called. Her voice was ice. Mom, I'm disappointed you're making this difficult. David and I are the legal owners now, and we need you to begin the transition process. We've been patient, but you forged my signature on a deed transfer, I interrupted. I never signed your papers, Jessica. I never agreed to any of this, and I have proof. Silence. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. You signed the refinancing papers. I was right there. You brought deed transfer papers and called them refinancing documents. That's fraud. Then you forged my signature on a different deed entirely and filed it with the county. That's also fraud. Multiple counts, actually. Her breathing changed. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. I have the original documents you brought to my house. I have the filed deed with the forged signature. I have witnesses. I have my attorney. And as of this morning, the district attorney has opened an investigation. Another silence, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. No more honey, just cold calculation. You're bluffing. No prosecutor will pursue this. It's a family matter, a misunderstanding. Try me, I said, and hung up. The court hearing for the emergency motion happened 1 week later. I'd never been inside a courtroom before. Not like this. Martin sat beside me at the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle, Jessica and her attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit, conferred in whispers. David sat in the gallery, alone. When our eyes met, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. He'd moved out of the condo he shared with Jessica 3 days after my phone call with her. He was staying with a friend trying to process what his wife had done. The judge, Honorable Patricia Brennan, was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. She'd reviewed our filings, and I could tell from her expression that she was not impressed with Jessica's side of things. Martin presented our case methodically. He showed the original deed transfer papers Jessica had brought to my house, labeled as refinancing documents. He showed the blank accounting forms I'd actually signed. He showed the completely different deed that had been filed with the county, one I'd never seen before, with my signature forged. He presented my written statement, documented timeline, and character testimony from Barbara about the changes in my behavior during Jessica's escalating pressure campaign. It was damning, absolutely damning. Jessica's attorney tried to argue that it was a misunderstanding, that Jessica had been trying to help with estate planning, that there was no criminal intent, but his arguments fell flat when Judge Brennan asked pointed questions. "Counselor, your client filed a notice to quit, attempting to evict Mrs. Mitchell from property that Mrs. Mitchell has owned for over 4 decades. On what basis did your client believe she had the right to do this?" "Your Honor, my client believed the property had been legally transferred based on a deed with a forged signature. We dispute that the signature is forged. I have 3 handwriting experts who say otherwise," Martin interjected, all willing to testify. Judge Brennan held up her hand. "I've seen enough. The deed filed on October 15th is hereby declared void. Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell is the sole legal owner of the property in question and shall remain in undisturbed possession of said property. Ms. Jessica Mitchell is restrained from attempting any further actions regarding this property and is ordered to cease all contact with Mrs. Mitchell pending the outcome of the criminal investigation." The gavel came down. Jessica's face went white, then red. She stood abruptly, her attorney trying to quiet her, but she turned to look directly at me. "This isn't over," she said. "You're a bitter, paranoid old woman who can't stand that your son loves someone more than he loves you." "Ms. Mitchell!" Judge Brennan's voice cracked like a whip. "You are dangerously close to contempt. Sit down and be silent." But Jessica wasn't done. "You have no idea what I'm capable of. You think you've won? You've just made an enemy you can't—" "Bailiff, remove Ms. Mitchell from my courtroom," the judge ordered, "and add a contempt charge to whatever else is coming her way." As Jessica was escorted out, still ranting, David dropped his head into his hands. The woman he'd married had just revealed her true nature for the entire court to see. After the hearing, Martin and I stood on the courthouse steps. "The criminal charges will take time to work through the system," he explained, "but the civil matter is settled. Your home is secure. She can't touch it." "What will happen to her?" I asked. "If convicted on the fraud charges, possibly prison time, certainly probation, restitution, fines. Her real estate license will be revoked. Her reputation will be destroyed. She brought this on herself, Eleanor." I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. The district attorney's office moved forward with charges: attempted deed fraud, forgery, filing false documents, and attempted theft by deception. Jessica's bail was set high enough that she couldn't make it right away. She spent 3 nights in jail before her parents posted it. David filed for divorce immediately. He was devastated, humiliated, and angry at Jessica for deceiving him, but also at himself for not seeing it sooner. "The signs were there," he told me over coffee 2 weeks later. "The way she talked about your house, about inheritance, about money. I thought she was just being practical. I didn't realize she was being predatory." The trial happened 4 months later. Jessica's attorney tried to paint me as a confused elderly woman who'd agreed to transfer the property and then forgotten or changed her mind. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before finding her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison, followed by 3 years of probation. She was ordered to pay restitution, though what she was supposed to pay back, I wasn't sure. You can't really put a price on peace of mind or lost trust. David's divorce was finalized 6 months after her conviction. He apologized to me 100 times, though I'd forgiven him long before. He'd been manipulated too, just in a different way. I'm still in my home on Maple Grove Road. The Craftsman house where I raised my son, where I built a life with Thomas, where every room holds memories worth more than any monetary value. Jessica thought she could take that from me with smooth words and forged signatures. She thought I was just a naive old woman who could be easily fooled. She was wrong. I learned something through this nightmare. Trusting your instincts isn't paranoid, it's self-preservation. When something feels wrong, it usually is. And being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. You can be gracious and generous while still protecting what's yours. My relationship with David has healed, though it took time. He's more cautious now, more aware. He's building a new life, and I'm proud of him for having the courage to walk away from someone who betrayed us both. As for me, I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I've joined a local group for seniors that Barbara recommended, I've taken up watercolor painting, and I've even started dating a retired professor I met at the community center. Life goes on, and it's good. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Your home is more than just property. It's your security, your independence, your legacy. Don't let anyone, family or otherwise, pressure you into giving that up. Get legal advice from your own attorney, not someone else's. Trust your gut, and never, ever sign anything you haven't fully read and understood. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who might be facing a similar situation. Stay safe, protect yourselves, and remember, you're stronger than anyone who tries to take advantage of you.